What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the latest episode of Behind Enemy Lines, a Texas A&M sports podcast. I am your host, Tony Catalina from the Austin American-Statesman. And like I said in the last episode, typically this is a football podcast, but we are switching gears. We're covering all the major sports, everything in between football, baseball, basketball. We'll touch on volleyball, we'll touch on NFL draft. There's a lot of Aggie sports coverage that we're going to dive into. And with that, it's a good time to kind of dive in, be a listener, subscribe, do all of that because A&M basketball is in full swing. Baseball will be here before we know it. And with that in mind, I want to jump in and talk about some of the basketball things that I've seen, some of the statistics, some of the things that have been impressive, some of the things to keep an eye on that can help A&M moving forward. Now, when you look at this basketball team, there are some deficiencies there, right? He's talked about it a lot. Bucky McMillan, that is. When you look at this team, they're not very big, right? They don't have a ton of size. There's something that they're going to have to be scrappy. They're going to have to fight, and they're going to have to, scrap and crawl for any type of rebounds, points, all of that. They're going to have to fight for it, and they understand that, and that's the mentality. We talked to Rashawn Agee after the game, and he said that. He knows every SEC game, and excuse me, I'm talking about after the LSU win, the first, SEC opener there. And I'm paraphrasing, he talked about the fact that, they're going to have to fight and they're going to have to be in dogfights. And they're okay with that because they understand this is the way this team is built this year. Now, when you look at this roster, losing Mackenzie Mbaku, the highest rated, forward, highest rated recruit this team has ever had, this ever program has ever had. So there's going to be some changes there. And with that comes, just different things that they're going to have to overcome. Now, where they can overcome that is where they've been really, really impressive. And that is on the bench. They're third in the nation in scoring points off the bench, 43 to be exact. They've scored over 40 points 9 times this year, if that is correct. I just want to make sure that I see that correct. They've seen at least 40 points come from 9 starters in 9 games. That is really impressive. Now, they didn't hit that total against LSU. I think it was 29 that game, but 43 points a game, 9 times over 40. Really impressive. I know it's a non-conference slate, but when you look at this team and the way Bucky McMillan plays basketball and he wants his team to play basketball, the bench guys are super pivotal. They're running out there 11 guys each night. They have a heavy rotation, too deep. They're playing a lot of players, playing a lot of minutes. I believe it was everybody on the team has scored a bucket, right, in this game. That everybody on the team has scored points. I believe it was 11 guys averaging more than 9 or 10 minutes a game. 5 guys averaging over 16 minutes, and it's just super impressive just how they've been able to kind of spread it out. Now, I know it's early season, attrition happens, injuries happen, people get banged up. So you wonder how is this pace going to hold up? But as of right now, you can kind of see the recipe of what A&M is trying to do. They're trying to stay fresh. They're trying to stay the full court press on defense. They're trying to kind of come at you real quick and fast with the 3 points on offense. And right now it's working, right? For them to scrap out a 75-72 win against LSU, and they did that, mind you, shooting below their season average at 29% beyond the arc. So if they're just shooting average, they're going to score 85, 90 points a game, right? If they're just shooting average. Now, when they don't score and they don't shoot at their average clip, and they're still finding ways to win, that's the impressive side of it, right? Because a lot of questions about what's this defensive team going to look like? What are they going to look like when it comes to rebounding? There is a lot of questions there. What Bucky wants everybody to understand, he said it and he's on record saying this, hey, we're a guard first team. We're a team that's going to shoot beyond the arc. It's going to be about the points. It's going to be about the pace. And that is true. And you look at it, right? When you look at the way this team is built, it's kind of true. Somebody that's coming off the bench talking about the bench points is junior guard Pop Isaacs. Now, this is a guy who's played at Texas Tech, played at Creighton. He's admitted it's adjustment for him to come off the bench is something he's not used to. It's pretty foreign to him, but I mean he's been excellent for A&M coming off the bench here. When you look at it, and I got the numbers in front of me, he scored in double figures in each of the last 3 games, including a season high 15 points on 5 of 7 shooting against East Texas A&M, and scored an 11 points against LSU. So when you get a guy like that, and mind you, he's averaging 20.2 minutes per game. So even though he's coming off the bench, he's getting top 5 minutes. So 6-man type of role there. He's a facilitator with the ball in his hand, can score, he can catch and shoot. Just really impressive offensive guy. But that's the type of team they're building out here. They're building a team that's got to be deep on the bench. They got to have multiple guys score. I know they get Zach Clements, 6'11", Federico, he's about 6'11". They get some big bodies who has some outside game to them, but they also got to be able to bang in the middle. And so they're a little thin there. Rashawn Agee, team captain, team heartbeat. He's somebody who is very, very vocal, very active in the block and in the interior there. But so that is something with him, it's just you got to look at it and say, hey, can he be the physical presence that they need? And I think he's kind of answered the bell early. I mean, six double doubles, right? That's something super impressive. Now you look at even when you look at Rylan Griffin, who's starting, and this is probably why you see Pop Isaacs, who's not starting, is Rylan Griffin has closed out non-conference play, averaging 11.7 points, 3.7 assists, and 3.3 steals a game through the final three games there. So you can kind of see some of these guards kind of finding their way, finding their ground. It's just one of those things where what is this identity going to look like? Like I mentioned earlier, they're going to have to play high potent offense. They're going to have to be tough and scrappy on the floor defense, and they showed that against LSU. But when you look at it here, I mean, I talked about AG, a second ago. He ranks in second in the SEC with those six double doubles, right? So that's not something that's, you could talk about non-conference play and say, okay, is the slate all that strong, and what do the statistics numbers mean when you're playing a Prairie View A&M? He's doing things that the rest of the SEC isn't doing. For him to have that, he had 15 points and 11 rebounds against LSU. Super, super impressive. He's finding ways to just be super productive. He's a vocal leader on and off the floor. He also ranks fourth in the conference and averaging 8.4 boards per outing. So 8.4 boards a game. He's total 118 total rebounds, and that's third in the SEC. And that's just super impressive. For me, when you look at it, that's where it starts. That's the heartbeat of this team. It would have been great to have M'Baku with him there, but it just that wasn't the case. And now they kind of find a way to get over that and find a way to kind of get around that. So I had talked about Ryan Griffin. I've talked about Pop Isaacs, but one of the more impressive players, somebody that has been a total difference maker for A&M, is Ruben Dominguez, the shooter, the sharpshooter from Spain. A&M went and got him, went international to find him, came over, and he's been stellar for him. He scored. He's 13th in the country, averaging 3.5 threes per game. So he's hitting 3.5 threes per game on average, and he's hit 49 total threes and is shooting 46.7% from beyond the arc. And that's top 15 nationally. So for me, it's you look at his way to play, and he's gonna get hot, right? There's gonna be moments where he is hitting absolutely everything, and when he's doing that, A&M can beat anybody in the country. So it's one of those things where you look at how they shot against LSU, wasn't all that impressive. 29% found a way to win. If you can find a way to find scrappy ways to win when you're not at your best, this is a team that can surprise people. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that this is going to be a Final Four team or this team is going to win a national championship. I'm just telling you, like Bucky McMillan has said too, there's obvious traits here. There's obvious skill here that say, hey, this team, if they catch lighter fluid, they can compete with anybody. And I think that's what Bucky has been trying to say to the fan base. He's been trying to convey that message through the media. So I understand that and I see that. I've sat through every basketball game. I've seen that this team can get hot. Now, they've won 4 games in a row. They've 4-1 over the last 5 games. I think this Auburn game on Tuesday is big. Oklahoma game on Saturday is big. These are 2 games that, hey, if they get out of this week stretch, and I'm talking to you next week, and they're 3-0, I think the narrative around them changes quite significantly. Now, I'm not going to be the one to sit here and tell you that's how it's going to go, but there is a lot to feel good about when you look at this team. Now, including that is, we talk about just how they've been so impressive in certain different avenues, right? So they shot 65% from the field against East Texas A&M, 65% from 3. Marcus Hill is playing outstanding, 12.1 points per game. You got Jakari Lane, who's averaging 6.5, but he's being efficient when in his 18 minutes. Like I said, Ruben Dominguez, he's obviously, like I just talked about ad nauseum, 13.6 points a game. Rylan Griffin at 10.6, 13.0 for Rashawn. So literally 4 of the 5 guys are averaging double figures that start night in and night out. And so you got a guy, Ali Deba, who scored 12 points against LSU. There's just different guys who have done things that can make you feel good about this squad. So you got to look at it. You got to look in totality. I think we're going to learn a lot about this team moving forward here this week coming up. But the numbers favor that this is the team that can do some things. I'm not going to promise you the moon here, but what I can tell you is I think they can be a fun, interesting team to watch, to cover, and I think the narrative can change, right? I think a lot of people felt, what could this look like in year one? I think there was some expectations that were, maybe we'll kind of check those a little bit, but we'll see how far it can go. We'll see how far they can take it. And with that, that's another episode of Behind Enemy Lines, the Texas A&M Sports Podcast. As always, Tony Catalina from the Austin American-Statesman. I'll catch you guys next week. Peace.